This program is brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?
Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues. As tonight we're bringing a conversation with a leading South African television and radio host and increasingly a fashion and business mogul, Bonang Matheba, known to her legion of fans as Queen Bee. At the age of 31, she already has 16 years of experience in the industry, having gotten her start as a television presenter at the tender age of 15. In her vast repertoire, she is presenter of television show Top Billing, ambassador for international brands the likes of Revlon, Ciroc, Peugeot, and more. She currently has 3 major projects in the works. Season 3 of her well-received television reality show, Being Bonang, will chart her ventures across the African continent as well as a move to New York City this year. She has co-produced and is featured in a documentary called Public Figure that will air this year with a New York-based company called Red Button Films that will look at the psychological effects of social media. And with her latest lingerie line just launched, it appears that the rise of Bonang Matheba from her humble beginnings in nearby Mafikeng continues. What does she consider to have been the secret to her success? What will she do next? We have a one-on-one conversation with the star. You seem to have found a winning formula for success in an industry that is not always kind.
Yes.
That is very fickle, and yet you continue to grow your brand. What would you say has been your secret?
I think consistency, and paying attention to the quality of product that you kind of give to people, whether it's a musician or you're an athlete or an actress or a TV host. I think making sure that your work is world class, it's always consistent, that you deliver on a brand promise. I think that's what people want to know, and people want to kind of, that's what comforts them. Finding your space in the world and how it changes every day.
Who have been your biggest teachers along the way? Whether they came in the form of people or experiences, but what have been the biggest?
Definitely experiences. Obviously experiences are, you can't take that away. I think every human being, that's how you grow, that's what determines your character and ultimately the adult you become. My friends and family, absolutely. I come from such a resolute, such a successful, such an academically driven family where kind of success is the one thing that you're taught, whatever it is in any industry that you're in, make sure that you're the best. Yeah. And that's what we were taught from a young age. But also as I grow, I realize that, it's my friends, it's my family, it's my fans, it's people that I interact with every day. It's a tweet or an SMS or a young girl that walks by or a story that I hear or an article that I read. I think inspiration nowadays, thanks to technology, has brought us all together, but also it's easier to find and it's more diverse. Yeah, there's more to choose from, for sure.
So there's no big marketing guru, genie man behind the scenes really building this brand.
I wish. My mother is my anchor, my life, my spine, my business savvy, the woman that has taught me everything I know in terms of, being a businesswoman, in terms of investing, in terms of how you manage your finances, planning, preparing for your future, whatever it is. My mother is definitely a woman that has helped me through every step of the way.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Where do you find that most people get it wrong when it comes to managing a brand?
2019, I find that, people are kind of obsessed with instant gratification, and we live in a world where everything happens but has to happen now. I find millennials are very quick in terms of what they want and how quickly they want it to happen. People usually don't spend enough time kind of appreciating and respecting the value of time and the importance of time and what time can do to you as a human being, to your circumstances, to your future, to how you grow, to your heart, to your soul, to your mind, to how you think. So that's, number one. I just find everybody just wants to be famous tomorrow. And I think the pressure obviously comes from social media, but it's number one, praying, definitely, being solid. I find people are very fickle. People can become quite vapid and quite empty-headed and kind of go with the flow. I find people who are solid and anchored in their decisions and people who have a direction and won't be told how quickly to get there and will be told how to get there are usually the people that usually get there. So I think for me, success and the path to success, the characteristics are the same. You hear it all the time through motivational speakers and everybody who's kind of done well in their life. It's all simple. It's prayer, it's lots of rest, it's enjoying it, it's doing it for the right reasons. Doing it because you love it. And then the money will come later.
I hear you when you say that, because people look at you at a young age and your success. They don't look at the 15 or more years you've put into it. There's no shortcut for experience.
Because you must be so good at what you do that you kind of make it easy. And when people see you, they think it's easy until they get into your shoes. That's what makes you a true genius. Is if what you're doing seems easy, that everybody wants to do it and jump on the bandwagon, then you're really good.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world. Because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to First Issues as we continue our conversation with media darling Bonang Matheba. Before the break, she updated us on her varied projects in film, television and fashion. So next we ask what she ultimately wants the Bonang Entertainment brand to be known for.
Bonang Matheba is, I own a production company called Bonang Matheba Entertainment. A couple of years ago, I had my first stint as an executive producer. I produced a show on SABC1 called Lights, Camera, Fashion, and it was a red carpet show for the South African Music Awards, and that's the first time I kind of fell in love with production. And then I did it again for Bedazzled, which was my online reality show that evolved and became Being Bonang, which I'm also co-executive producer on. And it was a gradual process, I think. I'm not going to be in front of the camera for forever, but I have a great passion and love for the creation of arts, whether it's music or television, and I think that's where it came from. And I wanted to see how much of myself, how much more I can push myself. And I said, well, let me produce an international film that has the likes of Denzel Washington, for instance, an international film that's going to open at the Manchester Film Festival, for instance. And I said, let me do it. It was a big risk, and it's a film documentary about the pros and cons of social media. It's called Public Figure, and I think the timing is impeccable because it has such an important message. Because I see millennials falling in love and being addicted to social media. They think it's not as dangerous as drugs and alcohol. It's just as bad. And in this film, we tackle those issues. We also have psychiatrists, psychologists. We also have people who, we have a social media and online, lawyer and people who work in the industry, particularly around social media. So not only are we seeing the good sides of social media, we also are giving you stats. We're giving you facts. We sat down with gurus who are going to give you everything you need to know. So that's where it comes from. After this, I plan on producing something that produces an Emmy, produces an Oscar. You get better and better every day. That's the purpose of life, right?
So Bonang Matheba, 10 years from now, we'll know you as a production house?
Well, I have a production house. I think back home everybody knows I have a production house, and you know, I think as an award-winning producer, hopefully one day if I have the time / director.
It's leaning in that
Yeah,
direction. Film and
definitely.
production, fashion,
Absolutely.
dabbling.
Fashion, absolutely. I mean, I have a fashion range. I have a lingerie line, Bonang for Distractions at Woolworths. I have Bonang by Bonang Matiba at Superbalist. So brand Bonang is growing. 2019, and I think the trend in terms of millennials and where people are going in entertainment is that you need to own your own content. You need to own your own things. Yeah. You need to own your voice if you sing. You need to own your voice if you speak. You need to own your content if you create it. You need to own your clothes if you make them. You need to own everything that you do, because luckily we live in a world that allows us to.
So what motivates your enterprises is ownership and your interests, personal interests.
Absolutely.
It's that simple.
I do what I do because I love it. And that's why I'm so good at it, because it almost comes effortlessly, and I do it for all the right reasons. I think even if I wasn't being paid to do what I do, I would do it every day with the same kind of enthusiasm.
And the move to New York is tied with wanting that Oscar and that Emmy.
Yeah, but I'm also moving to New York because I'm shooting a show. You know, I'm not going to New York to kind of find a show to shoot. There's a show that's there that's produced specifically around my trip in New York, and people around the world are going to see. So that's also exciting.
So it's a trip, not a move.
Yes, because I'll definitely be moving back. No, New York is too cold and America's too far. And I think I'll miss home, you know, I'll miss home. Yeah.
How challenging is it to separate, like you're saying, we live in an era of social media and all of that, to separate the personal from the professional when it comes to your brand?
It's deliberate and it's conscious, and it is something that you have to be aware of 200% of the time. I think a lot of people, and what's going to be the detriment of millennials in 2035 is going to be online reputation management. That's where a lot of people are going to fail. And the addiction to social media. I think that's the next big thing that's going to impact and affect people. You know, so you have to be deliberate in what you choose to share, because what you choose to share, depending on who you are and, you know, your stamina, people are going to be addicted to that. And then you need to think about it, because it's something that you might have to share for a very long time. Do you have the stamina to keep going? So I'm deliberate. I don't show you when I'm with my friends and family, because that's my personal life. It's my thing. I will show you when I go on a flight to go to the event, the after party, and then the transmission is off.
That is for the things you can control.
Yes.
What have you learned with regards to managing the stuff you have no control over, the bad publicity that happens throughout your journey in life?
That you can control how you react to it, and you can control the impact that it has on you and the human being that you choose to be after that, which is the most important thing. Tabloids happen and they only last a week, but what lasts is the human being behind the tabloid, and what happens to the human being behind the tabloid.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world. Because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to the show. Every once in a while, a company lists on the Botswana Stock Exchange Limited that generates enough excitement to get tens of thousands of investors participating in the stock market for the very first time. Many do so without fully understanding that their purchase of shares means that they are now part owners of a company, and as such, gain or lose money based on the performance of whichever entity they have chosen to buy into. To stay abreast of whether your prospects are looking good or not as a new investor, You will now start having to pay attention to economic and industry developments, as well as read through the bulky annual reports that you will start receiving as a shareholder, which can be an intimidating prospect at any level of education. To help both current and future investors decipher company financials and annual reports is returning guest Kwabena Antwi, who focuses on how to decipher the key element of any report, the income statement.
You have the income statement. So it's important because it shows how much a company made in profit for a year. It also shows the revenues and expenses. So first one will be gross profit. So this is your revenue minus your cost of sales. So cost of sales is what you need to spend in order to basically earn your revenues. So for example, the easiest is a manufacturing company. If you sell tables, your cost of sales is going to be made up of wood, it's going to be made up of the people who actually make those tables, the electricity that's used, that's basically the cost of sales. So then you get, after that you get a gross profit. So this is basically how much does a company make just to supply its product. Then after that, there are other expenses, and they're called operating expenses. So you have to have an accountant, you have to have a security guard, you have to they're just insurance, other things. But they are required for a company basically to exist, to operate, in other words. So you deduct this from gross profit and then you get what's called operating profit. So now this means as an operation, how much money does this earn before we take into account how they funded the business, i.e. before we take into account interest expense and investment income from other things. So after operating profit, you take out those other expenses, whether it's investment income or interest expense, and then you get to what's called your profit before tax. So I think that's self-explanatory, is to say this is how much you earned before you have to pay your taxes. Then you deduct your tax, and that's what you get, your net profit. So net profit is what you earned. That's the bottom line, as they say, and that's what a company can distribute to its shareholders if it wants.
Welcome to another edition of Own Your Day, Own Your Life, where we are told of the right health choices to make at different points throughout our day. Professor Kiran Bhagat has previously stressed the importance of getting good quality sleep. But the simple act of falling asleep is not that simple for many. Consumers, tired and unproductive from poor sleep, are fueling the rapidly growing sleep health industry, paying for everything from sleeping pills to sleep consultants, applications, trackers, noise machines, high-tech mattresses, robots, and more in a bid to get a good night's rest. The professor returns to tell us what causes insomnia, along with the do's and don'ts when it comes to remedying it.
The sleep disorders, there are several. I mean, everybody knows people who sleepwalk and sleep talk. The sleepwalking is classic, where the brain is not completely paralyzed, the muscles, and you act out. You go to the fridge and open a can of Coke and you drink, and you actually don't know that you've done those things. There are a lot of people who eat at night and will not have any remembrance of who ate from the fridge. They'll open the fridge and they'll think, I just did my shopping yesterday, and they're the ones that have eaten. There are people who become overweight by sleep eating, So there's sleepwalking, there's sleep talking, and there's sleep eating as well. There are also certain brain disorders called night terrors, where people become violent at night. And these are all sleep disorders we're beginning to understand because of the chemistry that's gone wrong in the brain. And there are sleep experts now and sleep physicians that manage these conditions. But perhaps the most common sleep disorder, if you like, is that of lack of sleep, people who cannot sleep, people who have insomnia. And I think the principal reason I see in our clinic of people who have insomnia is technology. You know, they're living under neon lights, they're living under junk light, they're not actually regulating the amount of light that's in their system. They're not switching off the lights. They have televisions in their rooms. They're watching television until they fall asleep. Or the TV is on even when they're falling asleep. So they've got the blue light continually affecting their system. There is what is called a suprachiasmatic nucleus. There is a cellular tissue just behind the eyes that if it is struck by blue light, it thinks that it's still daylight. So if you have blue light from a phone or from an iPad or from a TV, the brain will not switch off. It will not produce chemicals to make you go to sleep. The second is that there's light, you know, it's not a dark room. The third often reason why people have insomnia is that they use the bedroom for other things, for work. There's a computer in the room, you know, there's other things that they do besides sleep in the room. So if you want to have a good night's sleep, sleep should be in the room to be with your partner, and it should be in the room to sleep, nothing else. It should be completely dark. There should be no light coming in from the curtains. It should be dark curtains. So this is called sleep hygiene. So it's very important to make sure that you switch off your cell phone. The cell phone is very far away from the bed, even in another room. You can actually have a little bed that you can put your cell phone in, and the cell phone has gone to bed if you like. You know, and it should be at least an hour or two before you go to bed. You should also not have any caffeinated products. Coffee, tea should be stopped at lunchtime, because tea and coffee have a lifespan up to 6, 7 o'clock at night. So if you've had coffee at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it will still affect you late at night. You should generally try not to go to the gym, you know, 2 or 3 hours before you go to sleep, because your body is still hyped up. You know, try and exercise in the morning. And of course, avoid alcohol, because alcohol will numb your brain. And people talk about a nightcap, you know. It's not a good idea, because the alcohol that numbs the brain gives you the wrong type of sleep. People who have hangovers, people who have drunk themselves silly and fall asleep, wake up feeling tired because they've numbed their brain, and the brain has not gone through the sleep cycles we've talked about. So these are things that you need to understand very simply. And I want to end by saying, in terms of insomnia, that sleeping tablets are not a good idea. They're addictive, they act very much like alcohol in that they numb the brain, they numb that part of the brain that should go through the right type of sleep cycles. So you'll get 8 hours of sleep, but it's not good quality of sleep. And then eventually it becomes habit forming, and you become addicted to those tablets, and that's another story altogether.
This program was brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?